You could take our tallies off, please. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. It is all. Thank you. So we have a big crowd today. I will open up public comments at this time. A limit of 3 minutes, please. We need someone to be the timer.
I can time.
Thank you. Are there any comments here on the floor? Jerry,
Yeah, I have a couple comments.
and your name?
One, the
Your
COLA.
name.
These people should be paid.
Your name.
Your
Name.
Huh?
Your name.
Jerry Kaiser, 117 South A Street, Dayton.
Thank you.
The employees deserve an 8.7% pay increase. I mean, everybody's falling behind, and there's no reason these people should have to bear the burden. And two, there was a discussion on backing away from contracts that they've made with the club and the design on the trail. Those contracts need to be honored. A man's only as good as his word. If you give your word, you follow through on the contract.
Thank you.
That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Jerry. Any other comments? More.
I'm Maura Trainer. After I read the articles in the Dayton Chronicle and the Waitsburg Times, I sent an email into the port commissioners. I would like to read that email and then read the response. To the Port Commissioners of Columbia County, I'm extremely concerned for the future of Columbia County. I read the report on the Port Commissioners meeting in the Times and Dayton Chronicle. Both newspapers reported Commissioner Seth Bryan opposed any cost of living adjustment, COLA, for port employees. It was also reported that Mr. Bryan is receiving an 8.7% cost of living adjustment this year. How can he accept an 8.7% COLA while denying the port employees the same advantages? In a time when the entire country is struggling to hire skilled workers, do we want to risk losing our port employees to other institutions? I also read that Mr. Bryan did not want to provide the money allocated to the club from the workforce development funds as outlined in the contractual agreement. Rather, he wants to give that money to the American Legion. If Mr. Bryan is concerned for our children, as he claims to be, shouldn't he support the club, which offers our children supervision and learning opportunities they would not receive elsewhere in Dayton? I believe money invested in the club is money well spent, and the funding that was allocated for the club should be invested there. Our next generation is our greatest resource. I received a response from Mr. Bryan that said, Ms. Trainer, thank you for your positive input. It's always great feedback, always great to receive feedback. Motivational indeed. Much appreciated. And I guess I just don't understand that. I mean, I guess to me, it's very concerning, just like the last port meeting. Either you don't understand my concerns or you're mocking me. So, you know, it's difficult to have to come here and do this. But as an elected official, it's very disappointing. So thank you.
Thank you, Maura. Anyone else? Here. Yes, David.
Excuse me, I'm David Harvey. I reside at 816 Clay Street in Dayton. There have been a couple of allusions or off-cuff remarks about changing things at Blue Mountain Station. I hold a lease there. As all the leaseholders there, we deserve to know what you intend to do there. Uncertainty kills businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here present? Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to provide comments? Raise your hand or start speaking. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to presume that's the end of the comment period. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, we will start again with a budget discussion.
Okay, I sent out an updated version on Saturday. And want to give you updates on the items that we had changed. Under tax revenue, I took out the 1%. Because I got the impression that's the direction you wanted to go, so that removed 4,631 from that line item.
Can I make a comment on that, or should we wait until the very end?
Why don't you let me go through all of them and then I guess, I don't know, how do you guys want to do it? I'll do it however you want.
You want to do it line by item?
I have no objection to making comments or hold it again if you want.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, at the last meeting, it was suggested by Commissioner Bryan that he wished not to have a 1% increase in property taxes because of inflation. And I thought that was quite noble, and I had to stop and think, yep, that makes a lot of sense. And then later on, I remembered this here. I don't know if you recall having received that with our tax statement in March. So it shows down at the bottom that the port receives almost 4% of the total $12 million worth of property tax that is received by the county. So by increasing our levy amount by 1%, it's not a 1% across the board for everyone. It's 1% of 4%. So that's only 4 pennies on a dollar. For my situation, I pay $2,600 on my home. That would result in $1 increase for my property tax. And now again, realizing that that would only be the amount that would be included for any changes for the port. Who knows if the county is going to consider any other increases. But I guess what I'm trying to get to is our responsibility is to provide funds for economic development. And I think those funds could be used in other areas. And I wish that they not be discounted. I wish that my desire is that we include that 1% increase in that again. It could be used for other community support programs. So my desire is that we consider putting that 1% back in there.
Thank you for that. I do appreciate that. That does make sense to me. I understand where you're coming from. However, where I'm coming from is I promised the citizens of this community that I wouldn't raise taxes unless it was necessary. And if there's areas in our budget that we can trim a little bit to avoid doing that, that's the direction I would rather go, because that's what I said that I would do. And so I think that we can get by without that by looking at these figures that we have here and trim a little bit off of our capital improvements budget like we have. And I think everything is going to come out in the wash, and we want to put the extra burden on the citizens at this time. Our taxes have been going up a lot. I know it might seem like $1 here, but it's $1 here and $1 there. And when all is said and done, our tax bill gets larger every year.
So it's $1 on my assessment.
Mhm.
It's not going to be $1 for everyone,
Right,
realizing that. Again, I think it's a disservice to the community if we do not take that. Our responsibility is for economic development. Both of your platforms indicated you were for economic development.
Absolutely.
We need those. I mean, we don't need the 4,000. It's a small amount compared to, our total budget of approximately 866. And that's just of the revenue. That's not the grants. It's a small amount, but it could be used for other things. My point.
Thank you.
Okay, next line item, the Bell Farm crop income. I had not included anything at the last budget and didn't realize I'd left a 0 there. So I put in probably a conservative estimate. It was a much higher this year because of the price and the yield. It was almost 7,000. but I budgeted 3,000 because I like to under budget revenue and over budget expenses. Under Cameron Street Co-working, I had left out, remember last time I had not finished the one tenant line, so that increased that line item by about $4,000 in income. And that is it on the changes in income. So it actually moved it up, net increase of a couple thousand over what we had proposed last time. Under miscellaneous grants and loans, I did talk to the DOT. And I was actually surprised by the answer, which is if we don't finish the grant, we have to pay back everything we've spent. I did not know that was the case, so. We'd have to pay back about $400,000. So that is, I'm glad I left it in. Then admin and general salaries, as I told you, I left the number the same, even if you do not approve COLAs, because we operate very lean. I told them in an email that I sent them that I had not replaced an employee during COVID because I wanted to save the port money. And we had spent our reserve way down when we unexpectedly had to purchase the building number 2 at the Mountain Station. So we were really, we needed money. So we worked really lean for a couple of years and stashed about $100,000 and have never fully staffed back up. I mean, we're doing okay, but we're operating very lean. So even if COLAs are not approved, I don't want to reduce that number if possible because you need people to get the work done.
Comment.
Go ahead.
Once again, as we have heard from the comments given here this morning or this afternoon, we are in inflationary period right now. 8.6% is what I will be receiving, along with 30% of Columbia County that's over 65, which I would presume is on Social Security. I don't know about state employees, whether they will be receiving a COLA, but I feel that our employees are suffering just like all of us. The Walla Walla UB made an article this weekend, I believe, and it talked about all of the effects of inflation, food, gas, everything. I feel that a COLA is deserved of our employees also. And I guess one comment, Jenny, your employees, you decide the salary, is that correct?
Yeah, when I hire them, yeah. And then I recommend, if I'm going to recommend an increase, I would do it during the budget time. So that was why I had said 3% COLA.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's why, because it has to be noted in their file. So then if you approve the budget with that number included, then it would be noted in their file, and then January 1st, their pay would go up. Or if I thought an employee needed a raise or whatever it would be, yeah, but it has to be budgeted. So I can determine it, but it has to be the commission that chooses to make sure there's room in the budget
Right.
for me to make those decisions.
Okay, so at the last meeting, you had left 145,000, and that included the 5%.
Yes,
So I would say that we would authorize the COLAs at 5% for the employees. Because it's included in that number. It's not that it's increasing the budget amount. She would be staying within that amount.
I have a couple questions on that. So, one, number of employees that this would affect.
it's 3 full-time equivalents, 4 people, 2 of them are part-time, 2 of them are full-time.
3 FTEs,
Yes,
but 4 people.
yes.
And are all of them on permanent status, or is there anyone on probation because they just got hired? What's that process with that? Is there a 6-month probation? Or
I'd have to look at the manual. I think it's 3 months. I think it's 90 days. I think it's 3 months personnel policy.
okay,
I don't remember when you were hired. Do you? Oh, yeah, she's way past it. Yeah.
if that's what it is, 90
Yeah,
days.
yeah. It's not 6, it's 3. I'm sure it is. I don't have my policy manual with me.
I'm sure we do position descriptions and evaluations.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah. I do those.
The other one was, you had mentioned that we were running lean with personnel. If we're not running lean, if you had a magic wand, what do we need to not run lean if we have the ability to not do that?
I used to
Okay.
have a full-time economic development coordinator, and that was a big burden on the budget, you know, because it was a much higher paid position. And then when you add in, you know, the higher the funds in, then you have the payroll taxes and the PERS and all the things that go with it. So ideally, I would like to have a half-time economic development coordinator. I don't think I would ever go back to full-time. But of course, then that's hard to can you find somebody who wants to do it half-time? But to me, that's what's missing is, we've got the office stuff covered for the most part, the bookkeeping, both Tracy and Kelly help with maintenance all the time because there's constant maintenance. I mean, it's constant. But it's more the outreach, it's hard for me to have the time to put the outreach into the community that I wish I could. So that's what it would be.
Is there-
And then, just for 1 minute, just a minute, you didn't interrupt me, but another thought is, I've also batted around the idea of a maintenance person instead of we do all of our maintenance work by hiring, we have basically a handyman who helps us. But I've not ever been able to justify it financially. I think we save money by hiring it done, but it's harder because then you don't have somebody right there who can, run out and do what needs to be done. We would have a position that would be needed full-time in the summer and would not need them full-time in the winter. Do you follow me? So that I've batted that around, but we've never in my 15 years here had a full-time maintenance person. If we did that, the money would have to come out of the maintenance budget somehow to cover that. I just don't see it. I don't see there being enough there. Yeah. So I'm done. Go ahead.
Is there? And I don't know, maybe there's contract, well, it's economic development contract that works on a contract, so many hours,
Possibly. Mhm.
those type of things.
That's possible, yeah.
Especially if it was local, maybe you had someone from Tri-Cities or Walla Walla that wanted to do some freelance as long as it didn't interfere with their, what they do,
Mhm.
type deal, so. Because I agree, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and I originally, when I came to the first couple meetings, couple years ago, you did have
Mhm.
an economic development or planner. And that just kind of went away and then never came back,
Right,
so,
exactly.
you probably know more than I do the value of that. Because I haven't sat at this table with that individual.
It helps with things like getting a newsletter done, going out and visiting businesses. It's way better with outreach. Otherwise, we're just so busy. It's hard to get that stuff done and help, direct help with businesses.
And so when we had that, what was the bang for the buck? What was brought as far as economic development for that salary that was paid for that? Was it just
Well,
outreach?
that might be the rub because it still seemed like when it came time to close a deal with the business, it was me doing it. But at least there was more outreach and more interaction with a broader portion of the community. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think it helps then that the community knows what the port's doing. More than, I just get my nose to the grindstone and don't have as much time to be talking about what we're doing and making sure people know about programs like you were talking about with the American Legion. It's just hard to find time to do that kind of stuff if we don't have enough staff. So that to me was the value. It really, it made the port more known, what we were doing and what services we could offer. I didn't see it as much as like with business recruitment as I probably hoped, but it's such a joint effort. I don't know that I can say it didn't work. I would just say it really had more to do with the outreach to the
And what was
community.
the tenure on that? How long did we have that person?
Let's see. We had one for about 5 or 6 years.
Okay,
Yeah, and it was Catherine before, and she left and she's the Downtown Walla Walla Foundation director now.
Yeah.
I teach people what I know and then they go and make more money than I do. Happens all the time. Brad McMaster's before that. Christine was the first one. I think I've only had 3. But Catherine was really good. Brad was really good. So, yeah. I just don't, so if I could, I think I mentioned it, last year. Well, last year, or maybe it was early in the year when we were talking about money. I was explaining budgets to you and I had said I'd put in a little bit in the personnel budget, hoping I could hire somebody half-time and just never had. So that, yeah, that was there last year.
And when was the last time that anybody received COLAs here?
Last year, 2%.
Yeah.
We've always tried to do 2%. I think there might have been in 2020 when we were so poor. I don't think we did. I don't think, I'd have to go back and look. I'm sorry, this is just out of memory. I'd have to go back and look.
And that is every year that historically we've been giving 2%.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But I try to give a 2% COLA if possible, try to recommend a 2% COLA. And that was me recommending it for my staff. It wasn't always me who got it. You know, it would just kind of depend on what was going on, but I would, if it was, I would usually recommend one for staff if it made sense that budget year. I'd have to go back. It's been many years. I cannot say with certainty what it's been every year.
Okay. But that's kind of the intent, or
Mhm, mhm.
it could fluctuate from year to year, some years not. some years
Yeah,
it's-
I don't, yeah. Mhm.
The other thing is, do we have a pay scale range?
Yeah, it's in the personnel policy.
Okay,
And that's what we were talking about last time where he said I was at the top of mine. I've been here 15 years, so we've changed the ranges for the salaries of employees many times. You know, because they were low and then we've had to bump them up as the years go by. So that's something the commissioners do at a meeting in January.
okay. So we would have an opportunity in January to take a look at evaluations and bump range.
It
for an employee.
ranges to bump ranges,
Yeah,
not for an employee, for a class of employee. A part-time
oh, okay.
or office manager or, yeah,
If we wanted to add more to that range at that time.
Uh-huh.
But they would stay right where they're at,
at that, yeah, changing the range is a policy. It's
Okay.
not a salary decision.
just making sure.
Yeah.
All right,
So do you want a decision right now? On whether or not we want to, whether I have concurrence on a 5% COLA? Because I'm willing to let the 1% of the levy go. If, as strong as Commissioner Bryan feels about not increasing taxes, even though it is 4 pennies on a dollar. I'm sorry, I had to throw that in. I'd be willing to let that one go.
You can do it now if you want. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that at the end of all these revisions I did, that it actually, we ended up with more money left in our reserve than less.
Right.
I just want to make sure
I
everybody.
saw that.
Right, but you want to have a decision on
Yeah,
that
oh yeah,
line item.
yep. Mhm.
My recommendation would be to provide 5% COLA for the employees.
You
I
want-
guess my reservation about the cost of living is not whether it's necessarily warranted due to inflation or whether it's, deserved or not. But whether the current salaries are in line with the current inflation rate. And I know with Tracy being just hired, I would expect that she was hired at, a competitive salary for today's range. I'm not saying that she doesn't deserve a performance increase. I think she does a great job here. I just think that her salary most likely was set in range of the current cost of living. I wouldn't be super interested in taking a job that's below value. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. And with Jenny being at the top of the salary scale for that position, then it would require us to raise the ceiling on that in January. When she did receive a cost of living last year, in addition to a increase,
No, I didn't. No, just the increase.
okay. She received a substantial bump in pay this last year and another one the previous year. I'm not saying that's not warranted. She does a lot of work for us and she does a good job. I just don't know that it's in the budget at this time to increase it 5 to 10%. I don't necessarily think we have to go with 0, but I think it needs to be less than 5.
What would your recommendation be?
I would say 2.5 to 3%. I don't know what everybody else's thoughts are on that, Johnny.
I'd be okay with that.
With what?
2.5. 3 max,
Okay,
because again, certainly what we're doing right now.
right.
And if we want to try to get another valuable person in here, the other part that I put that in equation is when we lost the other individual that was holding that seat, it wasn't but a hot minute and that job was filled. Now, if we're talking about we can't fill jobs because we can't attract people, then I start looking at that deeper and going, we can't attract people, but the seat was still warm when she came in, which is great. That is awesome. That says that people want to work here and that's what we want. But I've also seen in other avenues that there's great places to work. They can't afford to work there. And I don't see that right here, right this second. So that's why I would like to reward that, understand the situation. But I'm no more than 3% is what I would recommend.
Okay, again, you know my thoughts. I would love to see them receive 5%. Yes, we have employees who were just recently hired, but these inflationary numbers, you know, that the Federal Reserve Chairman has been increasing, just ticking up that interest rate, and it has only been just recently, and the numbers, as we said, the CPI is 9.1 or 8.6 or something like that. So that's what we are getting our cost of living adjustment. I would concur with your 3% COLA increase for the employees.
Thank you. All right, next page, under community support and economic development, I did some rearranging and reflecting what I think Commissioner Bryan said. I'm not positive, but what I think you said. I moved it just the same dollar amounts for the contractual obligations we have plus the SBDC to the event, the economic development line item, left the event number the same. So it's just a shift. And then I added $13,250 to the community support. I think you may have said you wanted to bump it up to 20,000, but since I moved so much out of it, I thought that was a good compromise and it didn't really hurt the bottom line. So these would be things that have to be determined whether or not they can legally be done. I did some looking into the workforce development item, and I have 2 RCWs for you that list our economic development programs that are authorized, and then the list of workforce development like definitions of what. So there's one. So the first one is the program authorized, the second one are definitions, and there's 3. So not for discussion at this moment, I just wanted you to have it, okay? So if something is going to be a community support other than, sometimes we can do community support for events like a chamber, like Christmas kickoff, because it can go in promotions. If our name's being put in a guide or something, that's a promotion for the port. That's an advertising and a promotion. But if you're talking about community support where it's like workforce development or a service, then we need to look at that RCW and we need to have a contract with deliverables. Okay.
Mhm.
And then, okay, bike trail, same thing. I left it in there and I'm glad because after we got that wording, I decreased capital projects by 10,000. I didn't need to go any further than that because the budget balanced by just taking the 10. And that is a fund, just so you know, there are some years we spend all of our land and capital improvements, and there are some years we don't. It really depends on what we decide to do. And then, that's it. Then the bottom line, you see that it's actually still, I mean, for the, how poor we were in the year 2020, when I had a hard time sleeping sometimes because we were so poor, we're doing quite well. We're generating good income. And, we're in good shape, you know, we've got good reserve, we've got cash on hand, we're in good shape. So, and we are, I know, like Jeannie said, our mission is to reinvest in the community, so doing well financially doesn't mean we're doing something wrong and we're spending too much. It means we've got resources that we can do something with, and ports they're so great because we generate revenue from them.
Right.
So then we have more money, okay? So there you go.
Your budget.
Questions will be afterwards.
There will be questions.
I guess I could entertain that question afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have. So if you, I did, because of timing, I sent the public notice to the newspaper. I put that clean budget that I showed you today, I put it online just because I didn't want anybody to read the ad in the newspaper and go, why doesn't that port have their budget up? I can change it, but I went ahead and put it up. So it's taken care of in time frame, so we could have our public hearing on the 9th.
Good.
I scheduled it for 5:45, so we could start the meeting, do our minutes, do our little bit of talk, and then have the public hearing.
Great.
Does
Thank
that
you.
sound okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, the end of our budget discussion.
So this, and so what I need from you today is feedback, is you're not voting on anything, but you're saying, yes, this is the preliminary budget. It doesn't mean you can't change it next meeting, but that would be unusual. You kind of have to come to consensus and say, yes, we'll put that out as what budget we are proposing that we're gonna use.
Okay, we need a motion on that to accept the proposed budget.
I don't know. I don't know that we ever have
Okay,
before.
and we'll just let it go. We've had our discussion. Thank
Okay.
you both for your. thoughts.
So you feel like we're good?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, I think I'm.
Okay.
agree with this.
all right, great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All
So
right.
their incomes were removed from the budget, correct?
Oh, I forgot to talk about that line. I'm sorry. I left it in. No, I didn't. I left it in because I wasn't sure what the
Wasn't that a
decision,
suggestion last time?
it was.
It was a suggestion.
I did not take them out because I didn't know that it was decided and I didn't feel like we were that poor, but
And
yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot to bring it up. I'm sorry.
yeah, and realizing that we are balanced, we have a balanced budget that can stay there. Your thoughts? Would you like to donate your,
Yeah.
you want to donate your salary
Well,
to the
As you
cause?
said,
for one, I said if we needed to, I absolutely would, and if we need to, I
Right.
would.
Right,
And if it's a make a point, I can absolutely donate that to whatever cause I need, whether it's back to here or somewhere else.
it would go into a general fund, but
But
we are balanced.
you know, and if it was one of those things where absolutely, if, you know, I don't see that that's a need right this second. So, like I said, it's not a huge deal either way to me. I don't do this, because I'm getting a big paycheck at the end of the day. So it's one of those things.
Understood.
I'm in agreement with Johnny, you know, we discussed it, if there was areas in the budget that we couldn't trim to cover the costs, then that'd definitely be something that we would be willing to consider, but, there's some areas that we're able to cover that at.
not
We
like
don't
they're
get a-
COLA.
And, we don't get a very big salary here as it is, it's barely enough to cover our cell phone bill for the use that we do here. So, I don't see the necessity in that right now, so.
Okay. It stays in. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
All right, the next item on the agenda is the Public Works for the broadband contract.
yes, I sent that to you last time. The Kim Boggs has reviewed it. She is in agreement that we can sign it as is. She and I went back and forth with questions on whether or not there's a committed service provider. We have 3 committed service providers. Oh, and just so for people who aren't aware, this is to the Dayton broadband project is already done and the contract's done. This is Public Works Board funding that was granted to to extend the broadband west along Highway 12 almost to Huntsville. And it would serve the farms and homes and the state park and a cell tower. You know that cell tower where your phone always drops off between here and
Mhm.
Waitsburg? That cell tower would have fiber. Probably stop dropping off. So that is what this is for. And it was the 1.165 million and there's no match. So it's really awesome. Anyway, so we have been waiting. This money was awarded to us last, I want to say September, and we've been waiting for a contract. So over a year, we've been waiting for a contract. So you could, anyway, I went through it with the attorney. I went through it with the Public Works Board. We have our insurance issues clarified. We have to be very careful about how we advertise the PWB's name. We have to follow the subcontracting requirements carefully because again, this is federal funds like the other money. Those were suggestions from the port attorney that we pay extra attention to. But and then the timeline was confusing. And the reason it is confusing is because they took so long to get us a contract. We thought we could have it done. We proposed, I don't think we ever proposed having it done by June of 2023 though. But they're saying that if the legislature doesn't reauthorize the funds, if they're not spent by June of 23, then the project might have to stop. And so Kim and I both talked to them about that and they said they had to do it. It's like a cover your bases, cover your, you know what, statement. It doesn't mean they think there's going to be the money. They just have to, just in case something happened at the legislature. So that was one of Kim's concerns was timeline. The information has already been sent to regarding cultural resources to the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation. And so that's been underway for months. And I think last time I talked about political activities, I asked them what that was, and it was just, it's like if we lobby, but we don't, our port doesn't lobby. So we don't pay a lobbyist, put it that way. I think that's it. Those are the only questions I have. Questions from you?
Well, you had a couple of the same ones I did, the committed providers, I was curious about that, so been taken care of. In the beginning, it talks about an audit. If we expend more than $750,000 a year, then we have to do an audit. That come out of our pocket, out of the general.
Yes, and I don't know about federal audits yet.
Right.
I will be learning.
Yeah. I'm just
So the
curious
state
what
auditor is
cost
coming right now. I don't know. State auditor is coming right now. It started right now, our audit now. I'm going to ask them because it will change things.
Right.
And I did budget for the audit
Mhm.
because I'm so unsure. But I have no idea what the cost is and I don't know who does it. I don't know if it's the state auditor that then adds it to what they do, or if it's a separate auditing agency. So I do not know the answers to those questions. But I am geared up to find out.
Right. The other thing I had a question about was change of ownership or use of a sub-recipient owned property. Saying that this needs to be in service for 15 years. Is that just the infrastructure of the line or is that the land that it lays on? I'm just curious how this will affect the railroad if we were to choose to sell the railroad.
I don't know that I don't know. I mean, if we sold the railroad, we would have to have a easement. Yeah. Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
does the end up being conditional.
Yeah, I think
of
what
the
they mean,
sale,
yes,
if we
and
retain right.
yes, and I think what they want is for us to operate it for 15 years. They
Right,
don't want us to
right, that's
sell
what
it
I
to some
gathered.
private company and profit off of the federal funds that we received. I think that the curb project is 20 years. This one's 15, the curb's 20. So we will be in the broadband business.
I don't have any questions
Okay.
on that, Johnny.
I don't.
Okay, so this one, we do need a motion to authorize me to sign the contract, and then the port attorney can do it. He doesn't need your authority.
He'll do it. Do we have a motion to have the contract approved for the Public Works Board broadband contract?
I'll go ahead and move that we enter into go ahead and sign the contract for the broadband up to Huntsville.
Okay,
Second there.
okay, we have a motion and a second to accept and have the contract approved. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passed.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is executive session. So at this point, the reason for the executive session is to evaluate or to review the performance of a public employee under RCW 42.30.1101G. How much time do you feel we will need for this?
30 minutes.
30 minutes, okay. And there will be no action discussed after we exit.
I don't know, is that? The way they've done it before is you have evaluated and then the chair has come and shared it with me late at a later time.
That's what I mean.
I don't know how you want to do it though. Oh, is that what you're saying?
I would say that that's how we would continue to do that.
Would you rather do it that way or have her come back and talk with all of us? Would you rather have her meet with the chair or with us all as a group, I guess?
Oh, okay, so I can't meet tomorrow. How about well,
I think he means tonight.
oh, okay, all right.
Isn't that what you meant?
I mean, we could, or a schedule for, but if we did it at another date,
Yeah,
well, in executive session, we don't have to,
that's,
right?
that's correct.
Only thing we have to do is discuss to the public is the salary, so that's.
Which you kind of already did, you already did,
Correct. All
yeah.
right, so we will not be disclosing the review performance with the public, so
Correct,
the meeting will end when we come out of executive session.
right.
Okay,
Okay, you
Yes.
ready? Okay, so those,
Jeannie, can we ask a question?
okay, yes, I did say we would ask questions, allow questions. Shelley,
So I know that there has to be a public hearing before the budget is approved. What does that do exactly?
additional questions?
We
From the-
just get to ask more questions. Does the public input have any bearing on what will actually happen with the budget? No.
It would depend on whether a commissioner is moved by what is said, I would guess.
and I think I would clarify that it isn't question, it's comment.
Comments,
Yeah, you're
Yes.
receiving comments.
that's right. That's
Okay,
right,
so the public hearing is at a later time,
yes.
but before the 9th of
No,
November?
that is the public meeting.
It is on the 9th of November at 5:45 PM in this room.
Thank you.
Okay, yes,
I
Comment.
just have a question regarding this,
comments,
appraisal and possible selling of the railroad right away. I'm just curious, can you do that?
The only thing that a port can do is what's listed in its comprehensive plan. Okay,
Yeah.
and that is not listed in our comprehensive plan.
But I would think besides that, that's one issue, but besides that, wouldn't a utility or a highway or railroad require a certain amount of right of way for safety of operation?
They're talking about selling the whole thing.
Oh, selling the train,
the whole rail.
Oh, okay.
yes. the whole-
That wasn't clear in what I saw earlier. It was mainly just the right of way. thing. What's Seneca have to say about that? Any?
I have no
feedback
idea.
from them?
Okay.
This will be, like, the reason I said that about the comp plan is because we're gonna do a comp plan update. In
Mhm.
fact, the kickoff will be at our next meeting. I talked to the consultants,
Mhm.
and this needs to be discussed publicly.
Yeah.
It needs to be discussed with stakeholders
Mhm.
and the public, and then before anything is adopted, there's another public hearing.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, I
yes,
would think they would have quite a bit to say.
yes. Thank you. Comment.
I kind of wanted to add on to Anne's question. Did you say that you were thinking of selling the railroad? Is that what I heard?
There has been discussion
Oh,
on,
okay.
on the sale.
Or if I ask a question, are they allowed to answer, or is it if they do it in an email?
Any-
Oh, sorry, you're right.
Yeah, it's really comments. I mean, commissioners can, that reason I've been answering is that staff can often be directed to answer questions to the public,
Okay.
but a commissioner, it's up to them if they want to answer a question in a
Oh,
meeting. It's up to them.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
I was curious why you guys were considering possibly selling the railroad?
Okay, Jenny. go ahead.
You want me to
Yes,
answer?
Please.
Oh, it was at the request of the rail operator.
Yes.
And there's a lot to consider. I mean, there's a lot to consider before a decision like that would be made. And like with the question about Seneca, the question about the right of way, the question about the rail, all of it, that needs to be discussed publicly. A port like that, we cannot dispose of a public asset like that without a lot of public input.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense.
So we're just entertaining the idea to see what the options are. At this point, there is no decision, there's no leaning, there's.
There's no money being spent on that, like an appraisal.
Not at this point yet.
Not yet.
Okay, all right, so we have the end of our comment period. After our comment period, we're going into executive session right now at 7:15 and we'll be out by 7:45.
Those of you on Zoom, I'm going to put you in the waiting room. You're welcome to wait around, but Jeannie has said there will be no action afterwards, so it's up to you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
You guys meeting and running that.
Thanks, everybody. Super interesting.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
You're looking remotely? Oh, very good. That's not like me. I'm probably, I don't know, maybe half a mile.
Oh, well, you're really.
I'm really, I'm in suburbs.
Neighbors with, Colin Gallagher.
Yeah, down there. Yeah, he's across the road from me.
Yeah, okay, yeah, because I think he mentioned you. back
Yes.
election time, because he does.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't he great?
Oh, he's amazing. And it's what a last name he just.
It's the same.
Oh, yeah, I'm scared that one.
That really.
Yeah, because I just had a conversation when I stopped by. He was out doing some work and I said. You already have Martin ready.
Thank you.
Oh, I know,
The next week.
I know. Yeah, so we had a great conversation. We kind of told me the story. I said, man, every day is a blessing. You know, you don't take it for granted. Yeah.
It just scares me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Nice meeting you.
Take care.
Yep.
Okay, so everybody's in the waiting room, and I think now
Is there anyone in the waiting room or did they all leave?
no, there's 6 in the waiting room. So I think now I'm worried about the recording. You can't here, I'm gonna pause. Go ahead.
We are opening the out of executive session and going back in for another 30 minutes. Thank you.
You can go out and go back. Yeah.
Well, when we were putting them in, remember there was only the one initials, JP or something?
Mhm.
That was the only one I saw.
Well, hopefully we were muted. And then,
Well, yes, yours was.
It was muted, so, yeah.
Right. Okay, we're outside of executive session and the meeting is closed at 11:25. Excuse me, how about 8:25?
Feels like 11.
Seems like it's been a long day for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank
All
you,
right.
and thank you for getting these.
Good setup.
You're welcome. You let us know if you need any help with it.
Way easier to read. Well,
Okay.
as long as I can get it to come on,
Oh, but
I'm sure it
well,
will.
there is
Have
that.
you used the tablet before?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
because
What?
Jeannie was,
I
I,
am not.
yeah, she
just
didn't even
because
know how
I
to
don't
swipe.
have technology doesn't mean technology that run around my house.
I can, yes.
That's it, that's all I have.
I can't do this.
Yeah. No, everybody has, I just not, the only thing I have is the phone, and the only reason I have is phone, otherwise I wouldn't even have that, is, I got 2 phones, work and. So that my wife can get hold of me.
Remember, she was trying to see if I could save the participant list, but there was no chat, so there's nothing to save. So I just don't think so. I think it's over.
And
Okay.
thank you again for the water.
You're very welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Good, yes, it is good one.